like, I like to see myself as a champion where I would, instead of just like pushing them in the elevator and be like, okay, yep, it's on the 6th floor, actually riding up with them, stepping in the room with them and supporting that.
Yeah.
Welcome to Breaking the Binary, brought to you by Newcastle women and gender diverse people in tech. We acknowledge the Awabakal and Warramai people who are the traditional custodians of the land where we're recording today. We pay respects to the elders past, present and emerging of the Awabakal and Warramai people and extend that respect to all First Nations on whose traditional lands you are listening from today. I'm your co-host, Arden Jarret, and I'm here today with...
Sarah Frazer.
How are you, Sarah?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm still kicking along, you know? How about you?
Oh, good, yeah. You know, there's been a lot going on. Who knew producing a podcast would be so much work?
I feel like a fair few people knew, but we didn't ask anyone, and that's the secret.
We just, started very excited, and look, here we are.
We're living it. We're doing it every day. We're learning how to edit.
Every day.
We're learning how to be mildly entertaining in a recorded voice format.
You already know, Sarah.
Yeah. God.
Right, so our sponsors, I'd like to thank Newy Tech people, first of all, because we're here in their podcast studio. Secondly, the Port of Newcastle, who've come on this year, and we're very excited to have them. And MGA Thermal. So just a bit of a disclaimer, Sarah works for Newy Tech people and Arden, I work for MGA Thermal, both organisations committed to diversity and our pursuit of this lovely side gig.
Yes, thank you, Newy Tech people.
Yes.
It's very convenient to record here because I don't have to go anywhere. So big plus for me, but I do have to come into the office, but that's fine. We'll allow it.
Poor Sarah. I love your office, Sarah. It's a pleasure to visit.
Should we do the introduction of the guest speaker that we have today? Or, I mean, I'm going to let you do that.
Okay. We're super happy to have Tricia Martin here today. Hi, Tricia. How are you?
Very well after hearing that intro. Thank you.
So first of all, rapid question. What are your pronouns?
Straight into it. She and her.
Excellent. What's a random fact about yourself?
So this is actually recent, so a fresh fun fact about me.
Freshy, nice.
Yeah, straight off the press. I feel like I'm setting up for disappointment. So I kicked off my morning, as you do on Mondays, with a BuzzFeed quiz.
Yes, classic.
Very contentious one at that. It was, what Harry Potter house are you? Like,
I love
what
it.
Hogwarts? Okay, so we've all done it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was more intense questions. I was like really getting into the psychology of who you are as a person with
Okay.
house.
I need an
Anyway.
example of what these questions are.
So it was sort of like situational questions. Like, if you were in this situation, how you react to it. So it wasn't like those quizzes that are really obvious. Like, you know, like, oh, that's obviously Gryffindor, that's Ravenclaw. Yeah. That's a sort of a loser
What's your
question.
favourite animal? Is it a lion?
Yeah. What's your favorite color? Red. So it's more like intense questions. And anyway, I did it and I got Slytherin.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a Slytherin too. It's fine.
So I was meant to do it, like, it was meant to be a quick thing. An hour and a half later, I've done this quiz like 15 times because I keep on trying to change my outcome. Not joking, like 95% Slytherin. So I've just, like, the fun fact is that I'm Slytherin and I can't change it.
Slytherin is the best house. I don't know.
I'm so glad I found another person because I feel like people aren't being honest. They're always like, no, I'm Gryffindor.
Well, I used to think I was Ravenclaw, and then an ex was like, no.
That's basically saying you're not smart. Isn't Ravenclaw like intelligence? I feel you. I was really like, I felt really cheated. I'm like, so I'm not smart?
No, but it's like cunning and like opportunistic, and like I think that's just the trademarks of an entrepreneur.
Okay.
So really,
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
at least I'm not Hufflepuff, am I right?
I was just about to say, I think I identify as a Hufflepuff. I don't know if I'm calling myself out, but everyone's like, I want to be smart, I want to be cunning, I want to be brave. And I'm like, I just want to chill out, all right?
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to play Quidditch and I
Yeah.
don't want to be the center of attention. Like, I just want to coast through this
I want
Hogwarts
to
thing.
sit back at school, not get murdered by any bodyguards, play some video games, I don't know. Just leave me be. Hufflepuff's where it's at. So I guess this tails nicely into the next random rapid question. What is something you're proud of and why is it being a Slytherin?
Well, obviously. So that one. Secondly, so I found out last Friday, so I got nominated for the Women Leading Tech Awards in Australia.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, it was really cool. And there was a category for regional technologists that I applied for, and they rang me up and they're like, unfortunately, we don't have enough people in this category, which is sort of sad. Because I was like, well, there's heaps of regional technologists out there. But they told me that they'd put me into a different category, which is founders, which was a massive category. It was like, you've got your Canvas and stuff like that. And I found out that I got highly commended in it.
Yay! Congrats.
Thanks. And then what I'm even more proud of, I think I've said on a few podcasts now, but my cat hates me. But the other day it jumped like without me picking it up onto my bed and got within a meter of me.
Oh my God.
Based on agency. Like it wanted to be there and I'm stoked. Like there is a halo of happiness around me at the moment. I'm so proud of that.
I've had a cat for about 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure how long you had your cat for.
Yeah.
But she's now quite a pleasant cat to be around. And I say now because for the first 2 years she just hissed at everything.
That's what my cat does now.
Yeah. It takes a really long time.
What do you have to do?
Just like, I think it's Stockholm Syndrome.
It.
At what point, because her name is Hissy.
Yeah, well, it's
Was that like nominative
Miggins.
determinism, or was she?
So we originally named her Queen Lucy II because we did have another cat called Lucy before that, and she came with the name Lucy.
Right.
And then she just hissed for ages, and my mum's like, Lucy isn't her name anymore. It's Hissy.
Yeah, and then she's turned the tables.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I've had my cat for 5 years. It's felt like 15 slow, long years of pain, but there's hope. That's good. That's another thing to be proud about.
Maybe in another
Hope.
5 years.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I have 3 cats and they're just little fluff balls. Yeah, I mean the worst thing that one of them does is he has a pat spot, which is the couch in the study, and he has to run to that spot before he'll allow you to have pats, but he'll scream at you to follow him.
I do that as well.
Yeah. This is my designated cat spot.
My screaming, no, just screaming
Oh,
spot.
screaming spot. That's fine. That's fine. You've got to have a screaming spot.
It's a crying corner.
Sobbing corner, screaming, catatonic, just staring at a wall.
Oh God, yeah. So my cats are nice to me. I didn't realize that was
Oh my God, that's
something
wild.
that's
Among friends. I love it.
Next rapid question.
I feel like these aren't rapid. I'm just like going on and on. Sorry.
I love it's like getting to know you on
Yes.
like a different
Yes,
level.
yes.
How do you relax on your days off?
Yeah, so learning how to relax.
Yeah.
Okay, it is a process. I honestly switch off just because I've seen it so many times. I actually put it in the background if I'm doing flow state work, so work that I can just do without even thinking about it. I just put The Office on, and it just
Like
it's almost
the TV show.
Yeah, The Office, the TV show.
right.
Obviously
I was
US.
like, The Office stereo.
No.
A live
The
feed
Office.
of your Office.
after season 2, because it gets really good after season 2, but it's almost like priming. So it's like when it's on, I've got it. It's like Pavlov's dog, where it's like to the point where I turn it on, then I'm immediately relaxed. It like puts me in a trance state.
Yeah.
So I even fall asleep sometimes with it just like
That's
playing in
amazing.
the background. So yeah, if I need like immediate relaxation, which I am working a lot on weekends at the moment, just with the nature of the work, I'll just like get to a point. I'm like, The Office, and then it just like starts with the intro, and I'm just like, okay, get it. I can switch off. So yeah, that's my
It's like
sort
your
of,
meditation.
it pretty much, no, yeah, it is, because I get really annoyed with meditation. I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't want to be on a beach. I literally just want to be lying down eating Maltesers, watching a movie. Like, it's the only thing that gets me into
I'd
it.
rather be in the center of an office.
Yeah,
listening to
yeah.
Jim
I'm
and
like, I do not
Pam
care for
and-
nature.
yeah.
I want to be in
I feel
an
like somehow we're going to
Talking
bring
about
up that
selling
we
paper.
don't like the beach every podcast.
It's just overrated. Am I right?
Yeah, we hate sand. We've said it last time. We'll say it again.
I
Sand
think
is
it's
not
just
good.
like it's just such a default question. I'm like, a beach isn't a personality either. It's just a place. Like, I love the beach.
No, getting salt in my eyebrows is
Yes?
a sensory
Sand?
Yeah.
Yeah,
In
no.
everything.
Yeah.
It takes so much effort to get sand molecules or whatever they're called. Not molecules. I don't know. Whatever.
Really big
out of a car.
molecules.
It's really hard.
Yeah, just
Granules.
all round.
Yes. Science. Am I right?
That chemistry degree is really paying
It's
off
hard.
now.
It is hard.
All right. So, speaking of working,
Yeah.
transition. What is your tech? Like, as in, like, what category do you fit in?
I was thinking about that the other day. I don't think we fit into an obvious section. I think on a surface level, probably like ed tech. I mean, we traditionally get into that space via like the e-learning sort of, I guess, space. But where I would almost say, coining a term here, which is going to sound really random, but like nudge tech, like behavioral. So how do we harness digital learning experiences to change behavior or nudge behavior or change attitudes? Change tech. Does that sound stupid?
Hashtag nudge tech.
Nudge tech. I don't know. Anything, I guess it's education, but not traditionally just knowledge transfer. Yeah. It's more knowledge with impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the whole nudge stuff. Like I studied behavioral economics for a bit there.
Oh my goodness.
We did the nudge-a-thon in Brisbane, like, I don't know, 4 years ago. Yeah. But yeah, it was like really cool.
Yeah, and I also just love the word. It just, when you put it in front of something, it's just like, oh, that's cool and edgy. Nudge.
So maybe we should start for the people who don't know what nudging.
Yes. Yeah, for those who don't, someone else, not me. I'm aware.
You're gonna ask these questions, Sarah.
Yes. So nudging comes from, I guess, emerges from nudge theory. So I guess it's a stream of behavioral economics. But it has, over the last few years, it's had been identified having broader implications for behavior change rather than just purely economics. Yep. So it's basically how we create an experience for someone or design an environment to make the best form of behavior change the easiest. So almost like you're changing your behavior but not even noticing and making it really easy. Yeah. So I guess there's so many forms of nudge theory, and it has massive benefits both at an everyday level but in terms of like country policy level. Britain created a unit under the government wing. Do you follow them, the nudge unit?
I've definitely heard, I think.
Yeah, it's sort of like this cool, I actually think they're cooler than MI5.
I mean, Singapore. Anyway.
Yeah, actually Singapore has it as well. Yeah. So they're called nudge units, and basically they look at how can we change people's behaviour for better. And yeah, like a simple one on an everyday level is like, you know, if you want to go to the gym in the morning, no one
I've
can't
never
relate.
wanted that.
I don't want that either.
I go and I do this. So that's...
Yeah, okay. So I am like that. It's really hard for me to do any form of exercise. But a traditional sort of nudge sort of move would be the night before you put your joggers and like all your gym gear, have your car keys out.
Gonna make it as easy as possible.
Remove
all the barriers.
Frictionless, remove all the barriers, make it automatic is a really common one of nudge theory. And what's so good about it is that it's relatively low cost. So when we think of interventions, it's not like you need a massive technological solution that is going to cost you millions and millions. The most effective sort of nudges can be the cheapest. So I think that's why a lot of, I guess, governments in particular, globally now are really investing in, you know, nudge theory as a simple way to change behaviour.
I love it. And I one of the examples that I often hear too is changing the default. So say like organ donation.
Yes.
And then if you the default indicates like the correct decision as well to the general population. And so also it's the easiest. And if it's just a default, people can still opt out. Like everything's still like morally a choice.
Yes.
But it just means that people are more likely to do it.
And I feel like it's got a bit of bad airtime. It's like any sort of, I guess, sector where you can have good nudges and bad nudges. So an example of a bad nudge that's probably got, you know, a lot of press around it is like the whole idea of Instagram with notifications. Like they want you to keep on your phone. So you get a nudge would be like ding, and like your behavior changes. But then like you have really positive nudges. A lot of people, for example, cafeterias in the US with high schools now are putting in the default as a healthy option.
Yeah.
So that would be a really example of a good nudge.
They do that in Google with like having the salad bar immediately when you walk in, or like having all the healthy drinks on the unfrosted part of the fridge, and then the unhealthy soft drinks in the bottom half of the fridge that's frosted, or the chocolate bars in the cupboard below and the fruit on top.
Yes.
So a bad nudge would be that I left a can of Pringles on my banister. So every time I got home, I saw that can of Pringles and I thought,
that would be a yummy nudge.
It depends what your goal is.
Yeah. Now that I think about my cupboard, all of the candy is at eye level. So I'm like,
I found there was this really delicious chocolate spread that I kept walking into my kitchen and wanting to eat, and then it's if it's not there, I forget that I have it, but it's in, and I still wanted to remember that I had it, and so all I had to do was move something slightly in front of it.
Yes.
And then it was wasn't in the I didn't feel like I needed to eat it every time I walked into the kitchen.
There you go.
That's some nudge experts. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's a cool space to be in because it is obviously at an everyday level, but it has implications for, I guess, every sector, because I think every sector is in the business of humans.
Yeah.
And at some point, something's behavioural.
Well, it's used a lot in marketing.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's definitely used in marketing.
I know.
I know. I think it's good that it is. It's just I'm very passionate at nudge for good.
Yeah.
Is that that's all I'm going to say about the subject.
Should have a hoodie.
Yeah, nudge for good. Nudge for good, yes.
So how did you come across this interest of yours, and how does this work within your business?
Yeah. So I fell into it really randomly and with no intention. Is that the answer you wanted? So on hindsight, there was probably tendencies for me to end up in this space without knowing it. So a few clues that I obviously just ignored and, kept on living my best life and partied at uni. And now when I look back, I'm like, there was links. So went to university and did a double degree in arts, which of course, wow, so many job opportunities after doing an undergrad in arts. But I did Islamic studies and anthropology. And so the Islamic studies side of things really went into, really opened me up to the world of cultural responsiveness in any sort of intervention, education, policy, XYZ. Anthropology was really interesting because it was basically observing human behavior and asking the question, why do people act the way they do, and what's the implications for that? And also, you're pretty much stalking people as a job if you're an anthropologist. But again, you're in the business of dealing with humans. And I really enjoyed both those subjects because they did have a very human focus. And my first job out of uni was actually working with a behaviour change company that went into schools and did financial literacy for students from the ages of kindergarten, so we're talking 5-year-olds, to TAFE. Okay, so my days might have started with a year 1 class and ended with year 11 VCAL students who are about to start their apprenticeships. And it made me realise that knowledge can't just be given as a one-size-fits-all model, and that you do need really an understanding of human behaviour in order to provide meaningful knowledge, whether it's financial literacy advice, whether it's career advice to the people that you are serving or delivering to. So it was sort of a nice blend of I've just studied all about human behaviour and let's put it in a practical setting. And as I worked in schools, so I worked with every day was at a different school. So I was in Melbourne at the time, so anywhere from inner city private school area all the way out to Colac with farm kids who were driving utes to school.
Nice. Driving the tractor.
Every day was something different, and it just made me realize well, first of all, I love this space. I love facilitation. I love program design and making impact with knowledge that people need. But at the same time, I was we really need to think about how can we do this at scale, and particularly with careers. People deserve career knowledge that's meaningful. And then, I transitioned to a role at Ernst & Young, which is in the climate and sustainability division. And a small little group of that is community impact. And that's basically designing programs to create behaviour change around the world. So everything from we were designing programs to ensure that kids in Mexico could access environmental conservation knowledge, to the US with financial literacy, to Australia with safe cybersecurity and stuff like that. So every day it was how can we design a program or an intervention or a digital experience that will change behaviour for good? So applying nudge theory, but in a really practical setting. So yeah, like from that first lecture in like arts at uni, I probably didn't think there was a link.
Yeah, wow.
But over time, you just sort of realize that that's sort of your thing.
I love that there can be many ways to get to a particular career path.
Yes, and there's no right or wrong way to have a career. Yeah, definitely. You just, and also you can't see what you don't know. I didn't even know that my role existed until I was in it.
Anyone who says that they planned out their career from start to finish, unless they're like a doctor or something, is either very lucky or a liar.
Totally. Yeah. And I would always pick curiosity over having a locked-in plan. Yeah.
Yeah, I did love through my university experience in business entrepreneurship and economics.
Yeah.
They were saying that, we're training you for careers that don't exist yet.
Yes.
So, yeah, really just those fundamentals like curiosity and being able to like gather knowledge and work things out for yourself.
Yes.
That you can really fit into any career.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Yes.
So what are you doing with that now, Tricia?
Yeah. So sort of ending, so I was at Ernst & Young and then, a bat changed the world and COVID happened. And I realized that, and I think this speaks to sort of that our generation, where I think we value collaboration and over hierarchy. So I think that structure probably didn't suit me as it did when I first entered it. And I was like, well, I really want to, see where I go doing my own thing with this space. And I was really passionate about careers education at that time because of COVID. Obviously, a lot of those physical work experience programs were discontinued or really affected. And I was like, you know what? We should like combine that whole nudge approach to like career readiness and digital solution in a really meaningful way.
The classic Slytherin seeing an opportunity.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
For good. It's fine.
Oh my goodness. It's like, it's like a slow reveal of like, yes, I am a Slytherin.
I really hope that whoever did that quiz actually made it so that you would almost always end up with Slytherin and it would Joe.
I really hope so. So yeah, we started in the space of, I guess, behavioral approaches to career readiness for young people. And that's like physical workshops, but also digital. And then we realized the behavior change formula applies to any sort of sector where we're trying to nudge people in good directions. So since then, we've basically expanded Virtual Intern, which was the virtual work experiences, to Nudge On, which is more that, yes, nice transition, more behavior at scale for different sectors. So we've worked with veterans to nudge them into, financial capability post leaving the Defence Force, which we know is a very different world, transition to civilian life. We're currently working with the NRL to support career transition out of the NRL when athletes finish up, but also into the NRL with financial literacy. And also just recently working with the Yazidi community out at Tamworth, who have obviously come from Syria and Iraq, and supporting them in like entrepreneurial ventures in a way that's very culturally responsive.
It sounds like you do an awful lot.
Just a few things. So how do the nudges work in your offering? Is it predominantly through like an app? Do you tell people to set up their own nudges? What does that look like?
Totally. So we work in every sort of project. Because behavior is bespoke, how we work is bespoke.
Yeah.
We definitely work backwards from behavioral outcomes. So we will, with every client or any sort of space that we work in, we're like, okay, what are the aims? Is the aim to change behavior or is the aim to change attitude? Completely different solutions. And then from that, we're like, okay, well, based on that, this is the best solution, whether it's a physical program, whether it's an app, whether it's a digital e-learning experience, whether it's an interactive digital map. Like there's so many options, but that's sort of how we work, like bespoke. And it really does depend on, I guess, the behavioral aims. The first question we usually ask when we work with a client is, what do you want people who you're working with thinking, feeling, and doing at the end? And that's the question that will determine what we build. Because we know, for example, if you go into a year 9 class and build out a very fancy app, that doesn't mean anything. at all. That's not going to create any behavior change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why would you go on the app when you probably have Roblox on your phone?
Totally.
Or whatever kids do these days.
Yeah. If you can design an interactive story where they're, choosing their own adventure, that's going to be so much more effective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's knowing the people that you're designing for, but also what the behaviors that they want out of the solution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So whilst it sounds like it's all going really well, have you faced any challenges?
Oh my God. I couldn't log into my laptop the other day and lost my password. I was like, I know what it is.
Let me in.
Yeah, I actually changed over all, I won't go into detail around the security of this, but I love Buffy, watching it. And up until the ages of 20, all my passwords were Buffy related. And for some reason, I just reverted to that the other day.
Oh, no.
There's a completely different password now. But yeah, so that was a challenge.
Buffy related passwords, challenge number 1.
Yeah. The other one, I'd love to say the mental health side and balance. I think that's just a default though. It's it's hard. It's hard to balance. I've really struggled. I'm seeing a lot of my friends settle down now, which I love, and going to a lot of weddings and stuff, and I feel like I'm missing the boat with that just because I don't have the time to dedicate. So sometimes I get into my sad little state of oh my God, I'm all alone. So that's a challenge. But the main one I think is because being slightly younger, it's building trust with the client.
Yeah.
It's a lot. You have to put in a lot of airtime to be I got this, trust me. And I've always been I'm a bit of a crazy netballer and quite competitive. But I've always, even with that, I think it's very similar. When you're on a netball court and you haven't met your coach for the first time and you don't know your teammates, they don't know what you can do. And you really have to be in the game, show what you've got to give. Telling's not going to do anything. So I've really had to learn that, in order to build that quick trust, you just have to show what you've got, particularly in the hunter, because people are so supportive and have your back, but you really need to perform and show, which has been great because it's got me out of my comfort zone. I'm okay, yeah, I've got this, and built confidence. But at the beginning I was oh my God, I feel like such an imposter. Do they think that I know what I'm talking about? Do I know what I'm talking about? Some days I don't, and that's okay.
Does anyone know what they're talking about? Please tell me that they don't.
Yeah. So I think the two things are I think I'm always trying to find that balance between social life and what am I working for? I love what I do, but there's always that broader question of where do I want to be in 10 years with it? Am I doing it for lifestyle because I love it? And then the other side is obviously, the actual on the ground, building trust with people. Yeah.
I think the life stages one is always so interesting because especially women, we put so much pressure on ourselves to hit these arbitrary goals.
Totally. Oh my goodness.
People have just decided that we have to do this by this time or else this stuff. The algorithm.
Yeah. I mean,
it's the algorithm.
I remember being 18 and someone being when you meet the right person. I'm my mum had me at 37. And so that's basically 20 years from it was just so bizarre that people started talking to me about having kids, and I'm are you actually you're not doing this for the teenage boys, are you?
No. And there's no real time if men are 35, big business people, single, they're wow, what a catch. But if women try to do it, they're
yes.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. And I've really struggled just from a lived experience thing. It's that balance between, wanting in relationships, wanting that time together and everything. But then there's, I cannot stand the comment. And I think a lot of my single friends have experienced this prompt on Hinge and all those sort of apps is I want someone who doesn't take themselves too seriously. And it is so frustrating.
Why can't you take yourself seriously?
I take myself very seriously. Yeah. And I take my career seriously and what I do seriously. I'm really proud of that. And, I'm not willing to negotiate that either. So, it's a really interesting space to navigate.
It's good to know what you want. And I think a lot of people find that intimidating because they don't know what they want.
Yeah. Totally. Wow. Hyping me up. I love it. But yes, no, it's definitely that. And I think also the algorithm, on my Instagram, there's all these things coming up being wedding dresses and stuff. I'm like, how has this even happened? I haven't like gone to my Siri being like wedding at all, like at all. So why is it coming?
You got to
up?
get really weirdly specific with your Googles and like what you're searching. So I've been searching aquariums, plants, sheets on Stardew Valley, and all of my ads are like real specific to those.
Okay,
niches.
I need to start doing that, like wild cat.
What I do is I've actually found, because I use Apple Music, not sponsored clearly, so I'm about to back them out. No, I mean, their recommendations aren't amazing. And so I find that Instagram's music recommendations are a lot better. And so if a music ad pops up and I like it, I'll click on it.
Okay.
And then I just add it to my library, and then that's like, and then it keeps giving me
Music ads.
good music recommendations.
It's really cool to meet one of the only 2 people in Australia that use Apple Music.
How was your How was your yearly wrap? Oh wait, you didn't get it.
Hey,
You're not
we
on
did
Spotify.
get one this year.
What is it called?
I can't remember.
Cello taped up.
I do like that Apple has gotten around to copying what other people are doing a couple years late again.
I got really excited.
I know I'm using a Mac. Don't throw sticks at me, please.
I got really excited that I was like in the top 100 listeners of like one of these artists. But I was then in a top 100 of another artist, but I think it had like mixed up the artists because they were both called like the same thing. And then I was like, I've never heard of this.
Awesome, they've got some quality
And then
checks
I was
going
like,
on.
Yeah. And there is
works
only
well.
200 people that listen on the app. So
No, that's good. That comes you down. So yeah, okay. Algorithms, and I also think like because of my age range, I might be getting targeted as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely
Yeah.
do that.
Okay, cool.
But
Yeah.
you can like label things offensive and they'll take it down. Like I did.
That is so like you look really nice in that dress, but I find it offensive.
get this away from me.
I've done it before for like teeth whitening. Because,
Oh, I get that as well.
yeah, because
Skincare,
and then now
aging.
I don't have the teeth whitening. But it's like for me, like logically, I'm like my teeth still work. Why are you trying to sell me something that like
I've got
probably is only damaging the enamel? You know, I'm like, this is not like I'm not for
It
this.
is offensive.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so
find
like
anything
marketing,
offensive.
we
Yeah.
hate it. even though
Yeah.
I
Okay,
work in
great.
there.
Glad we're on
Yeah.
the same wavelength.
They're nudging us in the wrong direction.
They are.
Yeah, you've got to make it work for you.
Nudge for bad. That's an example.
Hashtag nudge for bad. All right. What's been your favourite part of founding your company? If this has been, there have been some of your challenges, let's focus on the good. You know, why are you getting out of bed in the morning other than your alarm?
Yes. I think the diversity of work is definitely one. Because we work in the sectors of many sectors, if that makes sense. So, you know, all our programs, because they're focused on some sort of change, that's applicable to every sector, like anywhere where there's humans, we work in. So just like, for example, we're doing some work down in South Australia at the moment in changing behaviour and nudging, I guess, younger people into the care sector. That has just been like an amazing experience because you're accessing stories every day that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. Like it's almost like we're coming in and people are, you know, sharing their space and sharing the lived experience. And I think it's the stories which are just amazing. Like one of the clients in home care that we've used as an example for one of our projects in our work experiences. So his story, he's like 80 and he still rocks up to CrossFit like 3 times a week, and he's also like training like 15-year-olds to do it.
Wow.
And I'm just like,
I struggled at CrossFit when I was 18. So
yeah, I struggle at movement, and this 80-year-old is just like, you know, just killing it. And then you go out to like Tamworth. We just did some work there with the Gomeroi Cultural Academy, and we were exploring like, I guess, entrepreneurial nudges in cultural business, and just like sharing in that is you walk out of the session and you just know that your cup's full in a way. Like it's very intensive work, a lot of research, constantly listening to the trends in the industries, but it's really just like naturally intriguing, and it's a naturally curious career. Like you never get the answers to questions, and that's what I really like about it. And it just makes me want to come back for more, really, every day.
you're hungry.
Pretty much. And just also hungry normally. Hunger for knowledge and also Maccas.
Hungry in every sense of the word.
Yeah, in every facet, yes.
What are you most excited about this year? Tell us your plans.
Yeah, so actually in 2 days we're having a strategy meetup, which is very exciting. I love those.
So another question on the side. How big's your team?
So there's 5 of us.
Cool.
So yeah, in our team. And then of course, like we bring certain, I guess, specialists on if we have certain sectors that we need help with. But yeah, I'm very excited for the strategy day because I just like, there's something about like whacking post-it notes up on the wall. That's just
Love
like,
it.
yeah.
Like writing on the whiteboard.
Are you going to use them? Probably not. Are they going to get lost? Probably. But I just love that movement. So we've come up with this, I guess, strategy concept for this year, which is called Nudge Up.
Ooh.
Nudge up.
Hashtag nudge up.
Hashtag nudge up on my phone. Changing the algorithm. But basically what we found is that obviously we're doing bespoke experiences for our clients, which is great. But then we stepped back and started to realize, I'm like, well, there's actually broader change when we think about nudge theory. It's not just nudging their clients for them or helping and supporting them to do so. It's also how can we nudge at a high level industry? For example, how can we change the insurance industry to attract graduates at a broader sense? So how can we attract the care sector? How can we attract people to really hard? And a lot of the times, like, they've got this stereotype of unsexy industries.
Insurance is not sexy.
Insurance is sexy.
I'm going to go out on the record and say insurance is generally not sexy. I'm sorry, NRMA. Not sexy.
I think it's pretty sexy if you're like, it's raining, your car's not working, and someone like comes to fix it up.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty sexy. Yeah, so I guess we're getting into the arena of like more consultancy strategy, which is really exciting because that opens it up not just to learning and training, but also something as simple as linguistics. How are you wording your industry to the client? That's another real like nudge tactic. Linguistics, observationally informed change. So how is your target market of future employees acting towards space? What's their attitudes towards the space? Which I really like because it's getting more into the behavioral observations and then building out sectors strategies for engagement and retention and recruitment with that in mind.
Absolutely.
Human behavior.
The linguistics one is really interesting and it's definitely come under a spotlight for recruitment agencies, which I might have a biased interest in, about even the language that you use and how sometimes it just incidentally introduces bias because it targets particular groups. So like really working on creating inclusive and diversity boosting language in job adverts and everything else you do is really fascinating.
Extremely. And I think linguistics and language is something that's really tossed over sometimes for like, oh, but we've got a really pretty Shutterstock image of someone high-fiving, so come to our sector. Whereas I think linguistics is a very clever, like, because people see themselves in words as well as imagery, and using them together is a really effective tool. So by trade, I'm an instructional designer, which is like how you design learning experiences for maximum impact for the people that are experienced on the other end. And yeah, linguistics is a very, very big one. Not just like in terms of inclusivity, which is really important, but just almost like, for example, in the care sector, when we're looking through job adverts and consulting of like, well, how can you change your job adverts to be more attractive and nudge people to actually sign up, we actually challenge people. We're like, okay, so let's imagine the word care is taboo. How are you going to write that job advertisement? And it opens up this whole different world of very human descriptions of what the role actually comes under, rather than just saying like, you need to know OH&S, like blah, blah. It's like you're safeguarding people's dignity. Like that is a very human description over just ticking the box. Like that's not like, oh, sweet, OH&S, great, up. I love Fridays. Like, you know what I mean?
That. Yeah. On that note of linguistics, and I don't even want to almost bring it up, but it needs asking, what are your thoughts on what ChatGTP is going to do to
I am such a fan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
pro ChatGTP.
I am pro. And the reason I'm pro is because of how it's used and the intention.
Yeah.
So in terms of like our sector and what we do, it's really good as a predictor.
Yeah.
So we can go in and be like, okay, so in Tamworth, what are the sort of trends of industry or, you know, movement in that space? And it just gives us really high level like research to go off, although it's not as recent. It's just helpful to have that sort of sense check. And it's really good at pulling out. So like obviously with our programs, we have a lot of evaluation. It's so good. It's so nice because I don't have like a traditionally data analytics brain. I'm always like, data through storytelling. And everyone's like, you're just trying to get out of it. I'm like, but storytelling. But I love like putting in, you know, our stats or whatever. And then it pulls out insights that I might not have noticed. So I'm actually enjoying it for that. In terms of copy, like obviously amazing. But, you know, I think it's going to be very hard to capture human voice. It's a very hard thing. And yeah, I don't think it's there yet. And I honestly think like that whole debate around, you know, people taking our jobs, it will give us more space. For me, it gives me more space to do the stuff that I actually enjoy, like the creativity thinking, the ideation, how are you going to design this project in a way that's interactive? And then I don't have to do all the proofreading and like the stuff that just took so much time that
Absolutely.
wasn't
it gives me more time to do what I really love doing.
As a marketing manager who hates writing copy,
Oh,
I can say
like
that
Instagram
I really
posts
love
and
it.
stuff it's so good for. Like write this in a way that a young person will like.
Well,
It's like,
that's
ooh.
it. It's like I'll do like the basics, and once I've sat there and thought about what needs to be said, and then I'd be like, make this sound more fun. Then it will like
give you iterations.
Yeah. But I'm also, and I'm also, like, we work with, a lot with students who are ESL.
Yep.
So when I look at places like Chat GPT, I guess my question is like, okay, yes, you're writing in a natural way for people, but are you writing in a natural way for everybody? Like, I think linguistics cannot be simplified in that.
I'm a data nerd, so my worry is always that it's based off historic data that already exists.
Oh, yes.
And there's so much shit on the internet and so much bias and inherent bias that it will just like incidentally regurgitate.
Have you read the Invisible Women book? Because that's
I
literally
haven't.
about that.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
So it's about how, there's so much data on women missing. And so when it comes to AI, it's like, well, it's only as good as the data that gets put in. And when you feed it more information about men or like a lot of stereotypes about women, then it's going to assume that and it's going to spit that out.
I guess that's where I'm probably concerned as well. Like, we know, for example, there's so much underfunding in medical
Absolutely.
investment in women's health. So, I would hate to think that, you know, a 15-year-old rocks up and's like, oh, ChatGPT, I want to learn about, you know, myself and my body. And then there's limited information. That's what scares me.
Yeah, as long as people take it with a grain of salt, I think it's fine.
I actually saw like a meme the other day, which was like how ChatGPT is being used around the world. And it was like 5% for like knowledge and then 95% being trying to trick ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I think that's where it's at the moment.
I do get that. Yeah, right. ChatGPT. How good. On a more local front than this global phenomenon. Excellent segue. Why Newcastle? Are you from Newcastle originally? Why did you stay? Have you ever felt the call of the big blue, biggest cities?
Big bluest cities.
You know what I mean?
Let me answer your question with another question. Why not Newcastle? Where would you rather be? Where would you rather be? Yeah, I like Newcastle because it's a balance. And you can, it's flat in that you can go and grab a coffee with a CEO and get some meaningful straight up feedback.
Yeah.
So it's flat.
Like I was
No.
thinking, I was like,
That hill at Bar Beach is not flat.
I was like, I live on the side of a cliff. I know it's not flat.
No, I mean it's flat in terms of you can access people and people who are willing to share.
Everyone's up for a coffee.
Yes. And which I really love about it. And I think I lived in Melbourne for a bit through uni and my first job, and I didn't realize at the time, but I just love community. I love how, you know, you can still access, you know, like the amenities that you need. You've got a fantastic sort of startup culture, you know, the usual that people list. But at the end of the day, like, you can still go to a pub and play, like, have trivia and like do barefoot bowls on the weekends and have that sort of like regional style life as well. So it's almost like the best of both worlds, some might say.
It's the best of both worlds. Don't sue us, please, Disney.
But it actually is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we love it at Newcastle.
Yeah.
I think I couldn't live in I couldn't live in Sydney or Melbourne. I mean, I was in Parramatta this morning and so stressful.
Thanks for being here now.
That's okay. Oh my goodness, such a pleasure. Oh, but yeah, like the city's just
Yeah, especially with like any sensory things going on.
Yeah, as
Seems
someone
to be
who
very
can't
stressful.
talk to people before 10 a.m. normally, when I'm waking up at 7 a.m. Parramatta, I'm just like that. I can't do it.
I'm such a big fan of, and this is going to sound like a silly thing to say, but a big fan of trees. Like my backyard is...
Sorry, I cannot believe I missed that. It's the trees.
Yeah,
That's
it's
why
literally the trees.
Newcastle,
And that
it's the
sounds
trees.
dumb, but if like I had to stay for a week at my old job in the inner city and I was about to have a meltdown because everything was so grey.
Yeah.
And the buildings were so tall.
Kills you.
And the sun disappeared. And I was like, what the hell
It
is happening?
smells funny too.
There's no birds here. Like, I'm so,
Yeah.
And
I like the idea of on Sundays going to the farmer's market and doing a bike ride. I mean, I don't do any of those things.
I like the option.
But I like the thought that I can if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And I did. Yeah.
It's like I always like the thought of going to the beach. Not that I ever do, but
We're sorry, the beach.
yeah. No, I just sand. Those sand molecules.
Hard pass. Oh, God.
Another rapid fire question.
Good.
So just jumping back a bit to you seem to be very passionate about sharing your experience and helping others. And like I did a little peruse of your LinkedIn earlier.
Really?
And
I didn't because I was embarrassed that you'd see that I'd viewed your
I don't even know how to use that feature. So you can do that as many times.
All right, duly noted.
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't get it.
Well, I mean, it seems like you do work with youth and women and helping, sharing your experience. What are the ways that you do that? And just give us a bit more information for people who haven't stalked your LinkedIn.
Yeah. So a couple of ways. So on the ground, I've always had a tactic from a young age. I think I started doing it in year 10, which was coffee. Well, at the time it was hot chocolate because I hadn't found coffee yet. Those were the days before caffeine. Hot chocolate with purpose.
Yeah.
And that was basically me just being annoying and not randomly, but people that my parents knew or that were in my orbit through my school, and I'd be like, hey, are you free can I catch up with you for a hot chocolate?
Over a hot chocolate.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously had coffee, but I was just asking them questions.
That is so adult. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wait, how old are you?
It was like year 10, year 11.
Yeah,
So it's
okay.
like when you're doing subject selection, and I cannot emphasize enough, it wasn't like I was calling up like CEO of Greater Bank being like, hey, like, are you free for coffee at 11? It was like, you know, my netball coach, like people that were in my orbit that were accessible.
I think at 16 I still couldn't look people in the eye when I talked to them.
Yeah, well, I'd gotten past that stage.
Nice.
Just, and I mean, the questions were nothing like sophisticated. It was like, what do you do again? Like those sort of questions. But I think I learnt very early on about like the power of storytelling, and it just gives you almost career clues. So how people get jobs, it's not just applicable to one sector, it can be used across the board.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's where like I loved anthropology so much, because that's like basically observing taking clues and then figuring out the action that I'll take from there. So that was one thing, and I still do that. So I always encourage, I'm like, if anybody ever wants a coffee with purpose or a hot chocolate with purpose, I'm always happy to have a chat and talk to students and stuff like that. FYI, if anyone's listening, happy
You
to
can
do
view
a
her
coffee with
LinkedIn.
purpose.
She won't know.
LinkedIn. I won't know. I don't check.
We're manifesting a lot of people listening, so
Yes,
be
great,
prepared.
great. Love it.
Mum, you've heard that?
Yeah, Mum, coffee with purpose. Can you please pay? Thank you so much. I'll take a large. So that was one piece. And then involved in some initiatives, like a few years ago, I was selected as a Foundation of Young Australian Social Pioneer, which is just a fancy word for people who are under the age of 25 who are just doing stuff to create change in a positive way. As part of that, they had a lot of mentor programs for students to create social enterprises and stuff. So I'll always put my hand up to anything like that. That's like a program that's, again, nudging behaviour in good directions for young people. And I'm also involved in the Hunting Young Business Minds Awards, which is an award program run by Cheryl Royal from Futurepreneurs, which is purposely dedicated to support young people who have business ideas, and they get a bit of funding if they win. But I'm very, very passionate about young people. They are the best at solving problems through their lived experience. So we need to support that because they know their problems best. So yeah, I think that's sort of the main, I guess, actions I take. So on the ground, but also happy to be involved in any initiative that sort of enables that in the Hunter regional areas.
That's a few things. That's a list.
Yeah. I mean, the coffee's double because I need coffee to stay awake. So
It serves a
talking about
double purpose.
I also have coffee.
That is like something that I realized much later in life. So good on you for reaching it at 16 when I was like transitioning into data analytics and data science.
Oh my God, I love that you're into that. I wish I could be. I'm actually so jealous.
I love a spreadsheet. I love a good like
That
Python
stresses
code.
me out. That really Excel sheets.
Yeah, you do. Like a pivot table. Mwah. Chef's. Anyway, I digress.
I want Clippy back.
Do you need help?
People
Yes, Clippy, I do.
Can I just say, Clippy was the original Siri.
Yeah.
Did they provide help? No.
But meeting with people and talking to people, even if you don't have a clear like business case for them. I mean, my previous job, one of the senior leaders tried to help me out by organising a meeting with some other people who I had overlapping experience with, and all I could think of was why. What am I talking to these people about?
Yeah. And I often think that with young people as well. I think mentorship is thrown out a lot. So the whole idea like, oh, I'll connect you with this person. But I think young people probably need more champions. And I think the difference is that if you're a mentor or you're a connector, you'll be like, oh yeah, no problem. That sounds right up your alley. Look, I'll give you the email and you send it. Yep. The likelihood and the overwhelm that causes is nothing's probably going to happen from it.
Yep.
And I think I like to see myself as a champion where I would, instead of just like pushing them in the elevator and be like, okay, yep, it's on the 6th floor, actually riding up with them, stepping in the room with them and supporting that.
Yeah.
So I find like if a young person comes to me and is like, look, I'm really interested in this industry, I'm not just going to be like, oh, you should contact this person. I will contact that person on their behalf, introduce them, and even like jump on that first initial call to facilitate that, because otherwise there's so much overwhelm, and that's actually cognitive overwhelm is like a way that, you know, limits behavior. It actually challenges the whole idea of nudging. So.
Yeah.
And we were saying before with imposter syndrome too. Like if people in their careers have that, then obviously
like what am I going to say to this CEO? Like
what if they think that I'm wasting their time? Like learning how to just ask questions and connect on a level that doesn't have to be outcomes driven is something that I've really
100%.
am working on as a skill.
Also what I love about Newcastle is that you can just have a coffee with someone without it needing to be like a sales pitch. Like you just have a coffee and get to know someone, and then if they are doing something that like might align with what you're doing, then you have another meeting about talking about that. Like it's like person first.
Yes. Yeah. And I also think just broadening that whole idea of supporting young people, it's almost being very strategic about the symbols and signs and linguistics that you use in that. So something as simple like, I will never rock up to like a coffee with purpose in my corporate wear. I'm always just going to wear like a t-shirt, gym wear if I need, like something really casual to break down that barrier between. Also, like in career presentations, if I'm facilitating that, there is no way that I'm standing at the front of the room. Like I'm sitting or like standing next to. Like I think those are really subtle but very important choice design that we need to think about when we're supporting young people as well. It's not just like believe in yourself.
Just
like,
do it.
It's very strategic and very symbol based.
I also usually show up early and I'll text them what I'm wearing and where I'm sitting because I personally am so socially anxious that walking into a building to meet a person I've never seen before messes me up.
Yeah.
So
I think
I'm not going to make them do it.
You've got the responsibility to ensure safety as well. When you invite people into your space, you have that responsibility as well. And one of our principles across all the board of anything we design is the whole idea of meet people where they stand.
Yeah.
And that is such an important principle. Like, even with financial literacy, and as an example, I'm never going to go to a year 7 class of students and be like, let's talk about investing. Like, they don't care. That's
They've
not
probably
where they
been
stand.
part of the Dolomites for years.
Exactly. It's more about like you'd go into like advertising and stuff. Like they don't have disposable incomes yet. So you need to like meet them where they stand with that. So
Don't get a credit card, kids. In 11 years, remember this. No
Avoid.
credit cards. Unless
You're a
it's for
natural.
points.
Yeah, I have one for the point.
Yeah.
Anyway. So if you had a chance to go back in time or to meet young Tricia now and you were having a hot chocolate
Together.
with young Tricia,
Oh, so cute.
what would you tell your younger self? What advice would you give yourself?
If it was in term 1 of 2009, I'd be like, girl, do not cut your own fringe. It is not going to end well for you. I'm not sure if she'd listen. So that was my first piece of advice. But yeah, I think when I was in year 9, year 10, I had a very locked in version of what I wanted to end up doing. And I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to perform and meet that. And I wish I was a bit more curious. And I think that's a lot of things. I think even asking yourself it's a hard one because I think young people are supported by an ecosystem, right? So I think it's not just on them to figure out their career and what they're going to do and all that advice. It's really on the ecosystem to enable that curiosity. So yeah, I wish I was just a bit more curious about, getting out there a bit more. But on reflection, like, you have what you have.
Yeah.
Like, I was growing up in the Bay. I was traveling between Maitland and Port Stephens on a bus.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love
I
Port
did
Stephens.
love. I missed that 1.5 hour, like 1.5 hour. I love being driven. Like,
Yeah.
now I have to do it, and it's like boring.
So much you could do while you were
But yeah, I think it'd be like stay curious because I think you'll naturally be open to more opportunities that sort of land.
Yeah.
And I think if you're like really narrow vision, the worst situation you could be in is like waking up when you're 50 and you're like 50 years into your career and you just don't want to be there and you hate it.
The sunken cost fallacy. Like, just
Yeah.
because you spent a long time making a mistake doesn't mean you have to keep making it.
Totally. Yes, 100%. So yeah, stay curious and don't do your own fringe.
Yeah.
Just
Advice
pay the hairdresser. Just
Advice
do
to
it.
live by.
I
Yeah,
learned that
I've got a
myself.
fringe. That was the second I'm like, never get a fringe again. And here we are, 2023.
It looks great.
Thank you so much. I didn't cut it myself.
I think it is a weird tension between like trying to have it planned out and also staying reactive to
There's
opportunities.
so much pressure on planning it too.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I think the tendency is to tell people that they need a plan. And I think you more just need to know what your tendencies are. And also, I was having this conversation earlier today, actually. There's so much pressure on paychecks and salary, and that I don't want to discount that. That is really important. You need to provide for yourself and family and broader community. But it's also looking beyond that. I'm like, okay, you've got 80,000 hours in your career. What are you going to fill it with? Are you going to fill it with things that sync up to who you are, or are you doing it just because you have to show up?
Yeah.
I always think if you're unhappy, change it. Like it's your
Me
own
too, I'm like,
life.
be
If you're
better.
not enjoying it,
Yeah.
choose something different.
3 years ago, I set my career. I had a mentor, and he kept asking, "What do you want to do in 5 years?" And I'm like, "I just want a job where I don't cry in the bathroom every week."
I love that standard.
And that was
quote.
it. And I've made it, everyone. But I had no vision. And
Yes.
it was really paralyzing because everyone was like, you're meant to know where you're going
Yeah.
next.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing right now. This
Yeah.
isn't working.
And that's why I think nudge theory works on a really ground level, because I think if you asked someone, like, where do you want to be in 5 years, no one's going to answer, oh, in a pandemic. So I think it's really important to shift that. I mean, we all know SMART goals. That's not helpful because things change. I think what's more helpful is looking at everyday habits and processes and getting that right. Like, I love doing this every day. And then the outcomes come after that. Yeah.
And there's so many opportunities that come up along the way. Like if you're locked into a plan, maybe that's just because once I have a plan, I am locked in.
Yeah.
But if you're locked into a plan, you like what are you just going to miss out on the opportunity? Like,
Yes.
of course you want to be open to new things. that
Yeah,
present
like
themselves.
open-ended questions, open to curiosity. Yeah, you really can't go
And
wrong with it.
Things change. Like you're saying, like this pandemic.
Yeah.
Like there could be redundancies. Like you could lose your dream job, and then what are you going to do? Like you should be open.
Yeah, and I think only because
curious.
I'm sort of like in your own business sort of space, it's sort of got to a point for me where I'm like, okay, well, it's such a risk, but is staying in this sort of world, that's also a risk.
Yeah.
Like a salary is also a risk at the end of the day. Everything's a risk. So why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been such a pleasure to have you on our podcast today.
Thank you for supporting me, even though I'm a Slytherin. I really appreciate the emotional support. I came in feeling so bad. I'm like, oh, so sad. But I'm like, yes, Slytherin for the win. I'm wearing green from now on.
We're
We're
the
going to buy a
best.
snake.
If we're extrapolating from this very quality data set, 66% of people are Slytherin. So that's data science.
This is what
right
the data
there.
tells you.
I love it.
Nobody
Let's make
report
a
me to
story
the
out of it.
So if you loved our podcast, please leave a review. And of course, all of Tricia's links and websites and things to follow will be available in the podcast description.
I'll put my Neopets tag as
Well,
well.
yeah,
Oh
do
my
you remember
god!
Neopets?
I still occasionally play Neopets. I
I'll
want
put
you
it
to
in
know.
as well. We can play.
It didn't die when Adobe Flash died. They made a very shitty new version, but it's still a lot of fun if you're a childlike adult. And on that note, goodbye.
Awesome.